welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed for the depressed. I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Chris.
And today we have a special guest.
Me, new hologram.
Welcome
We've
back,
had her
New.
on.
Hi.
Yeah, welcome back. We've had New on a few times before, and I highly recommend those episodes. They're really interesting.
That New is a more or less, well, how do we put this? You are now an expert on what it's like to go through, like, chronic illness.
Yeah.
And often
And how that
invisible
affects your mental
disabilities.
health, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you are definitely someone who can speak to this, and today we are going to be discussing something that you went through, last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ketamine.
Ketamine.
Yeah, you guys may
Ketamine
have
as a
seen
treatment.
ketamine. I know I have, like, even on Facebook, maybe just because I look up, like, depression stuff, but ketamine is being used as something not just as a crazy party drug, but now actually being used for actual health and help, and as an antidepressant. Some people are saying that it works for that. So we actually have our amazing new Hollow here talking about it because you experienced it, right?
Yeah. So, should I just start at the beginning? Are we doing the how are you holding up? Where do we go? There's so much to say. I have
Well,
notes here, so I stay on topic. But
that is totally fair. You know what? I think that is a good thing. We should start with is New. How are you holding up?
I am coming out of a depressive relapse that had been probably building up since August 2020, and I'm so used to managing it that, like, usually it's like, before my period it's really bad, and then as soon as my period comes I'm like, okay, I know that that was just my brain being crazy brain because of the hormones or whatever, and then I can get back on my feet. But it's just like as the months went by, it was just like more and more and more and more, and it was getting harder for me to like cope and to manage it and shit. And then finally last weekend it just like completely hit me like a truck, and it's like I get to the point where I stop caring about myself because I can't stand myself, and I feel nothing but shame and embarrassment when I look at like my life and like all the things that I've done or tried to do. And it's like it gets to the point where I can't look at myself in the mirror or anything like that because I'm just like, ugh, and I'm like, what a dumbass. Who is this idiot? Like, gross.
Yeah.
And even when I'm at that point, I'm still pretty like quote unquote high functioning. Like I can stay busy and work on my shit, even when I feel like nothing I do has any value anyway. Because it's like when I'm at that point and I don't care about myself, I still am like, okay, I don't care about me. That's all just whatever. But at least I care about my cats and they are important to me. So at least, if I can stay alive for them, then that's enough. And that's the point that I get to. And it's like what I'm realizing, what I already knew is like, this is my baseline. This has been my baseline since I was a kid. I remember being in so much emotional and mental pain and not wanting to live on this earth and this human life that I inherited without my consent. Like I didn't consent to any of the shit that I have to deal with as a human, but at least I had my cats, and at least I had my coping and my maladaptive daydreaming and all the things that I did to keep my head above water. It's like when I go under again, it's like, holy shit, I lived that way my whole life. And it really shows how far I've come that I can have that comparison now.
Man, if you
Yeah.
guys can have an animal, I think we all recommend having an animal if you have
Yeah.
depression, truly. I know not everybody's animal lovers, but if you are, and there's any way you can have a cat or a dog or a hamster, lizard, anything, just get one.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I am somebody who grew up having pets, and so as a result, I'm not a huge pet person because I was overwhelmed from an early
Mhm.
age. But after a while of not having one, I still I still finally came to a point of like I need an animal in my life, and I got one. But having something, anything to like remember why you keep going,
Mhm.
it really helps. Like if it's your cats, if it's your work, if it's you know just out of spite, even
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes that's really all we need.
I'm sorry that you're going through this right now, New.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's better now. Now I'm just like kind of, wobbly on my feet, like getting back up from it. And at least, I have so much to like bury my head in when I get this way. And it's when I can't even do that stuff, that's when I know I'm bad. Because if I can't be working on stuff, then I feel like I'm a complete waste and I never should have been born. It's that kind of like, and it's so stupid. I like think all these mean things and I'm like, why? Why am I so mean to myself? And then I can't help it, you
It's
know?
like reflections of what people have said to you or what you
Yeah,
thought they were saying
exactly.
to you back in the past, yeah.
I was thinking about
Mhm.
how I had a best friend in like high school who was always like, "You're not special. Like, no, that's dumb. That's ugly. Your belly's hanging out. Your smile's weird. You have a ugly laugh. Ugh, your eyebrows." Ugh, constantly. And that
Jesus.
that went on um since kindergarten from everyone because I was always a weird frumpy strange kid who didn't understand social rules, and so there was always something to pick apart about me. And as an adult, I'm so hyper aware of everything I do and say, and I'm always embarrassing myself, and like I'll go home from work and be like, oh my god, everyone thinks I'm so weird, and sometimes I don't care, and but when I'm in a bad state, I do,
Yeah.
and it really hurts. It hurts me.
I would like to say, as
Which
somebody who
is
has worked with
yeah.
you, I think everyone has always spoken extremely highly of you and is often
Mhm.
described to other people who are new as, "Oh, yeah, new Hollow, she's like a little fairy. She's just wonderful." So, just so you know, that's what I hear.
Thank
I've
you.
never heard anybody be like, "Oh, a weirdo," ever, ever.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Yeah, so at least there's always that. And yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, considering like when you and I met in high school, like our literal intro to each other was more or less just high-fiving each other randomly,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
I was like, "Yep, good highlight of my day. Boom, high five."
I remember.
Those were good days. But
Chris, how are you holding
so
up?
Yeah.
oh boy. So I am now 3 days without any antidepressants in my body. It's
Wow.
weird. Yeah. I weaned myself off over the last 2 or 3 weeks from 150 milligrams of Effexor down to 75, down to 35.5 or whatever the fuck, 34.5. I whatever it was. Anyway, now I'm down to nothing except my ADHD meds and other, health related medications. My brain doesn't know what to do with itself.
Mhm.
Do you
Like I
feel glad that
feel
you're off of it so
fuzzy.
far? Fuzzy. Okay, yeah.
I definitely feel glad because I can actually feel things, which is
Yeah.
cool. Um, I needed what the Effexor gave me, which was that feeling of numbness. I needed that
Yes.
for a while
Yes.
because it helped me kind of set my own standard of existence. I'm still in that standard, that state of nothing really particularly matters. Um, I'm just doing things to do things, but in a way, that's kind of where I need to be right now, I think. Uh, until I find something that gives me more purpose or more reason to exist.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest sensation, but it's definitely better than solidly, hating myself or not feeling anything at all.
Hmm.
Uh,
You mentioned
but
something
I guess we
interesting to
will stay
me.
tuned.
You said,
Mm,
you've noticed that your verbiage and your words are
yeah.
coming back to you.
Yeah, that was a side effect that I didn't even think about or like realize until it was happening. But I'm sure people did notice. Nobody said anything particularly. It wasn't until I noticed that people were like, "Oh yeah, huh." But when I was in my numb state of being, my complete and total like checkout of reality and just exist as a meat popsicle, um, I would not elaborate. I would not go into detail. I would not go into my usual like verbose manner of speaking. I would pick comfortable, easy words, and I would never go for my usual flair for the dramatic kind of over the topness. It was very much based on, yeah, I'm just trying to get the idea across. I do not care about being interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the lower my dosage was on the effexor, the more I kind of broke out of that and I was actively trying to be more outgoing and personable again, which was kind of fun. I mean, I'm still, it's still COVID time, so I'm not like, going out to parties and shit, but
Mhm.
I'm at
Right.
least like I'm trying to spend more time around people,
Yeah.
which is it's good ish, I think.
I think it's
I don't
good.
know.
Yeah.
Yay, that's good.
Baby steps.
Yeah. No, the baby steps are coming back for like remembering what it was like to be a human being.
Mhm.
Um, because I don't know, I'm still not there yet, but I'm at least trying, which is better than I can say I've been doing. So that's that's where I've been. Linz, how are you holding up?
Um, okay.
Happy
So
Valentine's Day.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're recording this on Valentine's Day. I'm okay. I think I'm depressed. I think it's like that crappy, really low level, barely noticeable, just like suddenly things just quite aren't quite as enjoyable. You're not connecting with people quite as deeply. You're not as inspired. And that kind of,
Hmm.
things are hurting a little bit more than usual. Weird, sad memories keep popping up. So having to be really mindful of how I am talking to myself and how I am expressing to
Yeah.
other people. I've been on a really hard project. It's probably the hardest project I've ever been on at this company. And I noticed something interesting. I've been researching a lot about ADHD, and I had a really hard time um, regulating my tone of voice and my expression because I was focusing on so many different moving parts that were um, pretty
Hmm.
intricate and needing of detail that when somebody would ask me a question while I was in the middle of that, I would sound much meaner than I meant to. I had to do a lot of apologizing last week. So that's where I am.
Oh, I feel that. I feel that so much.
And apparently that has to do with like ADHD with when you're hyper focusing. Like you can have a hard time. You can get like way over the top excited about stuff. And you can have
Uh-huh.
a hard time even just like mean sounding the way you mean to sound. So
Mhm.
that's something
Yeah.
eventually we're going to talk about for specifically more of women and ADHD in the future.
It'll be good, but
Mm-hmm.
for the topic this week,
Yes.
let's talk about let's start from the beginning. What is ketamine?
A drug.
Yes. Good. Moving on. Uh
It's
it
I
is yeah. I mean, okay, so I mean, for the most part, if you hear the word ketamine and you've, never heard it in a medicinal context, you just know that it's like it's a club drug, special K,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's pretty much like the base knowledge. But
Yeah. I remember
there's
like
been a lot of yeah.
people like telling me how they would trip really badly on it and what they would do and like, oh, special K and it's a horse tranquilizer. And so I felt a lot of horror when I found out that K ketamine was being used for people with depression and other ailments. And then like as more information came out, and then Lindsey, you like talked to me about your experiences. I just think it's so exciting
Mhm.
that we get to finally talk to somebody who has experienced it on our podcast.
Yeah, so I had learned about it years before because I'd watched like YouTube like vlogs or even documentaries about, oh, there's, ketamine has always been used for this and this, and it's also a party drug. But now they figured out that it's really great for depression and even chronic pain, PTSD, all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, but that sounds scary. Like, I don't know. And I also, like, it wasn't really available for me at the time.
Yeah.
And then, so from uh, I think around at the end of 2019, I started having really bad flare ups, like back to back, that would not stop. And I was really, really sick, and my neurological symptoms were just out of control. And oh, by the way, for people who haven't watched or listened to my other episodes, my diagnoses are ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease. I have fibromyalgia. I have myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, and I have type 2 narcolepsy. So that's narcolepsy without cataplexy. So I won't like collapse randomly or anything like that. But I do have a lot of hallucinations and stuff like that. Um, and I have atlas subluxation. It's a cervical spine instability and osteoarthritis, anemia. There's just, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm really tired all the time. I'm in a lot of pain. My intestines are bleeding a lot, even when I eat really healthy. And it's a constant juggling mini flare ups throughout the day, and then like big flare ups that knock me on my ass. So it was 2019 that I started like not being able to pick myself back up, and I was still working on TV sets and auditioning and starting a new job. So it was just a lot. And so I went through 6 months of testing with a neurologist to rule out a bunch of shit. They were like, yeah, well, because if you have all these other illnesses, it is, you know, it's not unheard of that MS would develop. And I was like, that's pushing it. I don't think I have MS. And they didn't see it, but they were like, but we have to tell you. They put me through. It was, you guys remember how hard it was for me to get the MRIs. It took like 4 months to get MRIs, and
Yeah.
I was getting sicker and sicker. I had to buy a cane, and it was just really rough. And I was like, I thought I was over this. Like, the medical PTSD is just terrible. Makes me
Mhm.
want to throw up. But the good thing was because I was able to get all those. I don't know if you can hear my dad playing video games in the other room. He's yelling. Because he's like, whoa. Because I was able to go and get all of that horrible testing done and rule that out, it cleared me for seeing a pain management specialist, which I had never seen before, even though I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when I was, 24? How many years ago? 7 years ago? So never had any doctor been like, you need to see a pain management specialist. Like, duh, you have chronic pain. No one ever said
Mhm.
that to me. So this
Wow.
awesome new doctor sent me to a pain management specialist. And this bro, we went over my whole history. He saw all my files, and he was like, have you ever heard of ketamine? And I was like, oh my God, this is a ketamine clinic.
What were your thoughts on ketamine at this point before you knew stuff?
I well, I was excited. I was curious. I
Okay.
was still scared because I had only had experience with cannabis, which I've had some crazy trips on cannabis,
Mhm.
like accidentally eat an edible that's too big or whatever. Whoa, that's intense. But um, I had been looking into like just for my spiritual development and practice. Like I had wanted to try like ayahuasca, but like that's a whole other thing. Now I'm kind of like, I think I would stick with ketamine just because like I don't want to like shit my pants and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Mhm.
ayahuasca, there's
But
a lot of rejection of the body. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, I already have butt problems. I can't push it. So um so yeah, so we had the whole consultation, and he was like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. It's really hard to get your insurance to cover ketamine because it's still like a new kind of treatment. But he
Yeah.
was like, "But you have, like, all of these terrible diseases, and you're young, and you should be out there living your life, but you're so sick, and so I think that we're gonna try." So he was basically like, "Don't get your hopes up, but I'm gonna try for you anyway." And the way he had to do it was he put ketamine in the treatment together with trigger point injections, which I hate, but I was like, okay, if that's the way we have to do it, we'll do it. And then they said, yep. And they called me and they said, we're going to schedule your first ketamine infusion therapy. And I was like, what do I do? Oh my God. So I did more research just to prepare myself. And um, that was my first infusion was May 13th, 2020. And they started with the trigger point injections, which is awful if you've ever had to get them. Especially, I had been going through a really, really bad neck spine flare up at the time.
What are trigger point injections?
They are so they put what do they inject? Hold on, we're gonna look it up. Trigger point. They inject uh stuff in your muscles. I'm sorry, I didn't research before. I forgot.
It's okay.
When you have like a really bad trigger point with especially with fibromyalgia, like a knot, a really painful knot in your muscles that may be like scarred and stuff and have adhesions, they inject uh like a steroid
Mm.
to help relieve the pain. For it's supposed to last for months. I think like over time it's maybe not good to do a lot, so they try to space it out. I'd had it
Mhm.
done before, but yeah, it's just really painful injections in my neck. And what stood out to me about this doctor is for the first time, like, so they had the nurse there. This was right at the beginning of COVID. It's crazy. Um, the nurse was spraying my neck before each injection with this numbing spray, and I was crying. And the whole time they were so apologetic and they were like, we're
Oh.
so sorry, like inject me. I've never had a doctor be like, you're almost done, okay, you should be very proud, you're doing very well. Like the doctor was so funny while he was injecting me, so you should be very proud. So that was over with quickly. And that is always hard because you're sore for a long time after, but it does seem to
Mhm.
help, especially if a bad flare up like that. um and So what they told me was it's a 40-minute infusion and they put an IV in you and everything. They put me in a little private room by myself. They had a comfy chair, blankets. They gave me a little iPad with music that I could play, like relaxing music. And there's a little colorful lamp in the corner. And so they said, yeah, we're going to do 40 minutes ketamine and 30-minute cool down. And then after that, they monitor you for another 30 minutes, and then they call your parent or whoever to come get you. Um, it was completely different than anything I've ever experienced before. Obviously, like I said, I only had experience with cannabis. So I the doctor, like, he put his hands in prayer and he looked at me and he said, have a nice trip, and then he left. he left he left the room, and I was like, okay, bye. And they left the door cracked, I guess, so they could hear me and check on me. um so I put on the relaxing music and I was like, okay, here we go. Like, I tried to be very spiritual about it. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna, this is gonna be good for me to get some transmissions and do some deep healing, and it'll relieve my pain, blah blah blah. I tried to just not be scared about it. And after a little while, it was like relaxed, like tingly, like a sedative. I was like, okay, cool. And I started to have the double vision, like when you wake up from like surgery.
Yeah.
And then the nurse checked on me, and I remember it being hard to talk at that point, but I wasn't like tripping yet. I was just like, wee. And then it was very, the sensations were like rolling up and down, not in an intense way, but like you're at a spa. It was very relaxing. And then I think it was 20 minutes in that I started, it was like I was launched into space. It was just like the doorbell of the clinic rang, and I was like, whoa. Like, it was just the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. And I was fixated on the color changing lamp in the corner. And every time the lamp changed color, I felt strongly that I was meeting a new entity. And I was like, "Oh, hi. Oh." Like every time the color changed. So it was a full on, it was a trip. It was like another dimension, and like I was snort laughing at one point, and the nurses were like peeking in on me because I would not stop laughing. I don't even remember what was so funny. But the thing about ketamine is it felt like I escaped being human. Like I escaped my human incarnation. I didn't forget who I was, but it was also like I had to remember that I'm this human on this planet, and this is my life story, and blah blah blah. I was like, whoa. It was almost like the consciousness of me was separated from the conditioned human me. So I was completely outside of myself, and every time I remembered I had a body, I would like lift my hand up, and it was like rediscovering some advanced ancient technology.
Hmm.
And the thought I had was, wow, a real human robot, the original technology. I was so amazed. I was so
You're just
amazed
a
that,
really cool Gundam.
yeah, I was like, whoa, I can't believe there's like joints, and it was crazy. And it felt like when you have a when remember when we were little and you would get a new video game and you would open up the thing and it would have like the character bios, and you would go through and learn about all the new characters. Like that's how it felt about myself. I was like going over myself and being amazed at this character, like, and I couldn't even believe. I was like thinking about my cats, my kittens, Ashley and Maxwell. I was like, whoa, they have 4 legs and a tail, and they're real, and I get to be their mom. Like I was amazed. It was just this a feeling of have you guys seen Soul?
Yes.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, is this feeling of being amazed at what it means to be alive as a human on earth, and all the little things that maybe depression made me forget about or made it hard to feel anything about. Suddenly I was like amazed because it was like I was a baby universe being born and discovering itself for the first time. um
It, like, removed the jadedness of
yeah.
existence.
Yeah, it removed the conditioning and the this is this and that is that and these are the rules and this is, I just could look at myself, and it kind of felt like I died, but not in a negative way, because I knew I was like, even though I was really happy there, and I wanted to stay there, I would almost look down at my life and myself and be like, how cool is it that I get to go back and be her? And
Wow.
it was really, yeah, it was really out there. And um
What did it physically feel like in your body?
tingling and weightlessness, like being in almost like being in a hot tub, very comfortable, relaxed. Yeah, it was just really, 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 really relaxing, and like drunk kind of, like if I tried to move my arm, I would like smack myself in the face. It was like a little it was a little hard to move.
And you probably would,
But
yeah, like, I imagine that any kind of anxiety that might have propped up, you could kind of be like, "Well, I'm in a facility where there's a doctor and
mhm.
nurses and, like, I'm safe."
That's another thing too. So the doctor warned me. He was like, "Okay, so some people do freak out because it's it's a trip." And I was like, "It's okay. I'm prepared for this. Like I'm ready." And he was like, "Okay." He's like, "Well, let me know, because if like they have sedatives so that they can just walk over and put it right in your IV if you start freaking out." So he's like, "Just don't be afraid to let us know." And so after he asked me, he was like, "Was it scary for you?" And I said, "No, it was peaceful. It was enjoyable. It was like a journey, and I learned so much about myself." And he was like, "You've made me so happy today that I am tripping with you." The doctor is so funny. um
Uh,
and I explained to him, I was like, I have I the thing but with me that is probably made it easier for me is because of the narcolepsy and the sleep paralysis. I have experience with the out of body sensations. I've had that since I was maybe like 12. And
Mhm.
so I'm used to that. And when it happens during sleep paralysis, honestly, at this point, it's just annoying because I'm like, I don't feel like hallucinating right now, please. I don't feel it, and then I wake up feeling hungover. But this was completely different. I felt that out of bodiness, but it wasn't like I was being dragged there against my will by a demon, which is how sleep paralysis feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And how did you
but
feel afterwards?
so typically with these infusions, they usually start like for a normal case because I had my insurance situation, they did it differently with me. So normally you're supposed to start with 2 infusions a week for 3 weeks and then you do like once every few weeks or once a month, and that would give you like those kinds of results. But for me, I was still, my neck was still in a lot of pain just because I was having that flare up. But um I think it was 12 days after that first infusion that
Mm.
something changed. Like I woke up and I still had pain and I was like, okay, it's just normal. And then I went through my whole routine, pain management, resting, and then I was like, okay, it's time to play video games and just relax. And suddenly my pain level was so low that I could sit up and play video games. And I usually can't do that for long because my spine. And I have like a reclining chair here on the floor. So when I play video games, I'm usually reclined and I have like a trigger point ball on my neck because it triggers spasms when I have to like use my arms in that position. But I was able to play games for 3 hours straight and I hadn't done that in forever. I cannot sit up for 3 hours straight,
That's
Wow.
especially doing,
amazing.
yeah. So like it's usually like because I used to do live stream every once in a while and I would have to take breaks and get my ice packs, get my heating pads, get more drugs and rest, and it's just a hassle because then the pain makes me foggy and I can't concentrate on the game. And like it was so strange to suddenly not have pain but not have it, like because I've been on like tramadol before and I was like, wow, I don't have pain today, but then like that doesn't last long and then it makes you feel sick in other ways.
Yeah.
And this, yeah, so like then the second infusion, it hit within 10 minutes. I was so fucked up. I that it was so different too. So like the first one felt like an introduction. Like,
Mhm.
okay, this is what this is. This is a different perspective on your life, new. I was like, okay. And so I just had to surrender to it. But then the second time, it just shot me out of the matrix. And I didn't laugh. I didn't giggle a whole lot like the first time. It was like work. It was like, okay, time to get stuff done. And this was right when the protests started last summer. And I
Right.
remember I was so distraught and I was just, my heart was hurting. And it was like I was pulled out of this dimension into a control room that was like spinning through space and I could sense the presence of like a team. I couldn't see them or hear them, but it was like I was translating music into a human language that I could feel and understand from them. So it felt like 1,000 conversations at once from different perspectives. And I had to keep remembering to breathe and then getting distracted that like breathing was such a crazy thing for a biological life form to be able to do. Breathing is just, it was so overwhelming. I was like, whoa, this, I can't believe that this works. And so in this control room, it was like different programs, different lives, and these were all people who had died really terrible ways. And it was about the protests, and it was so much pain, but it was also so much love, because it was like there's a reason that you feel the pain. You feel the pain because you have love for human life and you value human life, and this is why this is important to you, and this is why this is important to all these people. You are feeling with them. And it was like, it was almost, it's like it's this weird kind of detachment, but not like in a cold way. It was like I didn't feel any sort of like terror at the thought that my time here is temporary. It felt like a class. Like when you graduate a class, it's like obviously class is going to end, you're going to graduate, you're going to move on. And you
Mhm.
might be a little sad about it to say goodbye to those memories, but it's not like, oh, now it's just a class. So that's what it felt like human life was. I was like, okay, it's a class. So that was the perspective that I got from that second infusion. And every time I opened my eyes, it was like I had a VR helmet on. It was crazy.
It sounds almost like a flooding of empathy, but without any of the, like, extra baggage that comes from knowledge of the world.
Mhm. It wasn't like a hopelessness. It was like cuz we hurt because we other people are hurting, and it's overwhelming when you feel like you can't help.
Yeah.
Um
So I
and
have a
the this
question for you.
yes.
Um, Sorry to interrupt. So just so
Yeah.
the audience knows, we're in 3 different households right now, so sometimes I think, our time's a little off, so if I interrupt, I
Mm.
do apologize. But, um oh, no, did I forget the question? Um, you so as somebody who's depressed, when you hear about people, like, going in and doing, for example, let's say, like, shrooms or acid, they say, like,
Mhm.
"Don't go into doing that if you're in a bad headspace." Do you feel like ketamine takes you out of that headspace and it's okay if you're depressed or sad or being really negative because it's not gonna give you a bad trip?
I think it depends on the person, because like even though I get to really bad negative places, like I do have a practice that would give me kind of a cushion in a trip kind of situation. I think it was okay for me, but I think other people it might be a little much. So that they do say like it's because they interviewed you pretty intensely before ketamine. I think if you were in a really really bad depressive relapse, they would be like, let's hold off maybe and wait until we can get this under control for you,
Mm,
and just make it a more comfortable experience. I'm not
mm.
sure. From I mean, I've watched so many vlogs about it too, and some people did say that, like, I mean, it just depends. It depends on you. Some
It's
people
the
have a
cave
hard
from
time.
Empire Strikes Back. You
Mhm.
what are you facing there? Only what you take with you.
Exactly,
The
exactly.
worst.
Yeah, and this second time, so what I did hear a lot is that people had nausea, and the first time I didn't have any, but this second time I did because I had breakfast before,
Uh,
and I was dying after, so my dad ran and got me some Taco Bell, and that helped. Um
Cure
Not
for
usually the first
nausea.
thing I think of. So, when
I
you
I
went to get
mean, yeah.
ketamine, were you getting it more for the pain management, or were you getting it more for depression, or both?
I think pain was my main focus at that point, because it was just I had that flare up was just not quitting, and I just couldn't do anything, and it's just I get this terrible spasm in my whole body, and that's why I'm always on the floor. I have to like work on it. But yeah, the pain was the main thing, and the help that it gave me with my depression was a bonus, for
Mm,
sure. But it definitely gave, and it's also like my pain makes my depression worse. Like if I'm
Yeah.
in so much pain that I can't do stuff, and I'm bored, or I'm being hassled about money, or I'm scared about whatever problems it brings up, that's gonna make me feel more. That's gonna make me feel less able to cope, because I'm already in pain and I can't. Because there have also been times when I've had a complete terrible depressive relapse, but I haven't been in that much pain, but I've felt like I'm dead, like I'm just a dead zombie, and I'm that depressed.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes I mean, the mind and body connection is something that often gets overlooked a lot when it comes to, mental health and whatnot. So it is something that it makes a lot of sense to think that given your chronic pain, the idea of something that adjusts that ultimately will have a positive influence on your mental health. That makes complete and total sense.
Yeah, it's all one package.
Hmm.
You have to treat it like a whole picture instead of patching up little corners. It's a whole thing. And yeah, after the second infusion, it also took about 10-12 days for me to feel the overall pain relief. Like, I guess it has to build up in you. Um, but I remember after that time, I worked 4 days in a row,
Hmm.
I think, yeah, I worked like 4 days in a row, and it was so easy to manage my spinal pain, my everything, all my symptoms. Like, I still had pain, but it just was so low compared to where I'm at. Like, I'm usually in so much pain, like, day to day, that, like, I there are points throughout the day where I have to stop doing what I'm doing because I just can't, like, I can't think, and, I'm so used to pushing through it that I'll be, like, working on something, and I'm struggling, and I'm like, "Why is this sucking?" And I realize, "Oh my god, I'm in pain. I shouldn't be working in pain."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So who
Uh,
would you say, like, if our listeners and they're like, "Well, I'm curious about it," who do you think is a good contender for ketamine treatment?
mm, Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it might be something that you just have to talk with your doctor about and see what they think. And if you, I mean, for me, I knew it was the right thing for me. I knew it wasn't
Yeah.
gonna, I wasn't gonna freak out or anything or have a bad experience. Um, I do know that you have to be off antidepressants to do it. They won't give it to you if you're still on antidepressants. Um,
Yeah.
Good news for
so
you, Chris.
Yeah, for real, right? No, I still don't think I qualify considering I'm also on ADHD medication, but
Mhm,
one of the things that, uh, the main issue that doctors are facing right now with ketamine as a treatment is that one, the FDA has not approved it for use yet. So,
mhm.
as far as Americans are concerned, our healthcare system sucks ass anyway, so let's elaborate. The other thing is a lot of the as far as for working on depression, there's studies being done and there's theories as to why ketamine helps with depression, one of which being that it uh, prompts regrowing connections between brain cells that are involved in mood, and that the effect's profound and that it works way more rapidly because obviously if you were taking a drug that is influencing your physical brain, like that's going to be the big winner right there. uh Ketamine taken intravenously might be the most important breakthrough in antidepressant treatment in decades.
Mhm,
uh and the other thing is, there are other psychedelics that have been equally studied,
mhm.
psilocybin, so magic mushrooms and whatnot.
Yes.
Uh, but the harder thing about it is the fact that ketamine is closer to PCP than it is to shrooms.
Mhm.
So as a result,
Yeah,
that's
it's
going to
just
be the
a
hardest
hard
part.
sell, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, we shall see the future of ketamine, and I'm curious to see if once you're able to go back and possibly get more treatments, what an update from you will be from then. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, the thing about the brain connections, it explains the trip and the hallucinations. And
Mhm.
I remember the third infusion, that was the last one that I had. I had all of these messages come to me, and this one wasn't like the control room. This time it was literally, I swear to you, it was like a three-headed lion, that it was like a snake eating its tail, but instead it was a three-headed lion. And
Whoa.
it was like golden and glowing, and all the messages I got was like, I don't know why we make up all these fake ass problems in the world. The paradise is ours if we will only accept it. Bodies are not what shame is for. The body is made of love. This whole system's got to go. I am alive. There's a lot of work to do on earth. Being human is a challenge. There are constructs that we make up that hold us back. Identity is a hoax, and we have to give up the ghost. And this is the root of so much trauma in the world, is just bullshit. And the rewiring helped me to see that, and to see myself free from those uh, rules and labels and things that are probably this, my childhood trauma, like the source of a lot of my depression, or in the source of the way that I talk to myself in my head, is from my, mean friends, and family members and all that kind of, when you're haggled and messed with every day about your appearance and things about you, you get fucked up about it. And so
Of course.
like, it was
Mhm.
it was like
Internalize.
ketamine like grabbed that and pulled it apart and was like, no, like this is not you. These are things that people said about you. That's not you though.
Yeah.
And I did do shrooms. Um,
Yes.
so unexpected. Well, not I knew what was then, but like I was like, Dad, what is this pink lemonade in the fridge?
Uh-oh.
He was like, oh, it's from your mom. It's shrooms. Like, what? So I did my research because I was like, okay, I know this is gonna be way different than ketamine, and I was like, I don't know how I will take it. So I did my research and I waited a while, and then I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna microdose. That'll be fine. I was going through some depression anyway. I was like, okay, cool. Teeny tiny sip, tiny little bitty sip. Oh my god, I was couch locked the rest of the night. And my dad checked on me. He was like, "Is it too much? Are you okay?" And I was like, "What?" But
Nah, it's
yeah,
good.
and it's funny because the shrooms felt similar to cannabis to me in my body and in my brain. It was the same kind of sensations. It just felt like I had like vaped way too much. And the shrooms also gave me a really strong it gave me a higher baseline above my usual like seeing myself as having no value and all these mean things that I think about myself. That again, like the ketamine, gave me a huge um uh piggyback up above those thoughts. And so I had a great positive baseline and I felt great. And so that's I'm like, okay, well obviously these two things both really work for some people.
Yeah.
But every time I call my doctor about, like, "Hey, I need more sedatives. I'm freaking out." They're like, "No, you need to go back on antidepressants." And I yelled at that late girl on the phone. I was like, "I've been on 4 different kinds of antidepressants. Like, they obviously don't work for me."
Yeah, seriously. That's gonna be the next conversation I get to have with whoever my next psychiatrist is I get to sit there and just go, "So, SSRIs don't work, SNRIs don't work, Wellbutrin didn't work, what's next, babe?" So,
I wonder, and
get
I think
to
there should be a good study on this if because we know for a fact that many people do need antidepressants. It makes their life better. They are able to function and have a full, lovely life. And I mean, it really works for them, obviously.
Mhm.
And
yeah.
I wonder if there's been studies on like personality types that it works for and those that it doesn't. I wonder if there's been studies on that kind of stuff because from what I've heard in my very small corner of the world is the friends that I have had that have had depression that were artistic,
Mm,
creative types, and they went on to, I mean, it completely changed their personalities. Yes, I think there are times in your life, regardless of what personality type, you need to be on antidepressants.
Mhm.
And there's always a lesson to learn about yourself and everything. But I noticed that a lot of creativity goes away when you're on
mhm.
antidepressants. It's like you're seeing everything through a muffled lens. And with Chris, like it was interesting that you're like just your verbiage, your writing, and you're writing. Chris is somebody who can write so well and so eloquently and so verbosely. And it was just like not that anymore. And obviously just verbal as well. But and it was like I experienced that as well. And I think Hollow, did you experience the same thing?
When I was put on antidepressants 4 different times, every time it honestly just made me dissociate so bad that I couldn't make any art. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't feel. I I did not feel alive, and those were it made me really suicidal too. So
Yeah.
it was
Oof.
just a bad reaction immediately. Like and they were
Yeah.
like, "You gotta stick with it and take it. It takes a
No,
couple
you
weeks to kick
don't.
in." And I was like, "But I'm dying. I feel like I'm dying." It was
Yeah.
bad for me.
And see, mine is nowhere near as, like, obtuse. It's not, like, immediately like, "Oh, I wanna fucking die."
Mm.
It's more of just at first, it feels like, "Oh, this is a positive. I don't feel like shit anymore." But then that not feeling like shit turns into the status quo where I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like shit, but I don't feel like anything.
Yeah.
I don't feel like existing right now, so I'm just gonna not.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
disassociation, name of the game.
Yeah. I
Totally.
I wonder if I wouldn't, because for me, I thought like maybe I'm just too fragile because I have all of these different health problems together, and so a drug like that is just too much for me because I just don't respond well to most like pills anyway. I take supplements. I really don't take any. The only if I had this is where I would put my Xanax if I had any. It's that situation. Xanax is great for me for my flare ups and panic attacks and vomiting cycles, but the antidepressants fucks me up, and any other kind of medication I've taken for my colitis. I've taken all kinds of steroids, and I took
Hmm.
what did they gave me something crazy for my narcolepsy at first.
Didn't they give you stimulants?
Yeah, they gave me fucking stimulants. Why would
Yeah.
you do that? I was like 98 pounds, and they're like, you're fine, you're fine. I was like, are you sure this is
Here.
safe?
Yeah, have some meth.
Oh my god.
It fucked me up. I couldn't eat. I was shaking so hard I couldn't eat for 2
Hmm.
weeks on the stimulants, and that is when I decided to um talk to the pot doctor because I had read that weed was really successful with narcolepsy, and that's what
Hmm.
started me on that journey because I'd never tried cannabis before, and I said it on the other episodes. It made gigantic ginormous difference with my narcolepsy for sure.
Yeah,
Well, I think the
absolutely.
the moral of the story for this episode is know yourself before
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
start, as much as you can before you start to experiment on what's going to work for you and your depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also one of the big things to take away is, unfortunately, with ketamine, I can at least say that it is not available damn near anywhere.
Mhm.
In just looking up like where you can get ketamine treatments done, for the most part, we happen to be very fortunate to be in Southern California, as it is one of the few places that is actively trying it. So, uh, hope for the future, but for the time being, if you are on antidepressants and they are not working for you, or you feel adverse effects, or if you're in chronic pain and they're not taking you seriously, first off, rip your doctor a new butthole,
Mhm.
brand new one. Make sure they have at least 3 by the time you're done with them. And then once you've done ripping those buttholes, then talk to your insurance, rip them some new buttholes, and then you might be able to get something that helps you.
It
Gross, man.
takes so much work. You gotta stand up for yourself, and it's like,
Yep.
I have such a like, in person especially, I have a hard time getting doctors to listen to me, and
Mhm.
over the past, like, 4 years is when I really started, like I would write a letter, I would write pages of notes for the doctor for them to put in my file and for me to make them sit down and listen to. One time I yelled at my primary. I was like, "No, listen to this shit." And I had made her listen, and that was when I finally got my handicap parking placard. I made her fucking listen. I was like, "I've been doing this for 6 years. I'm struggling. You guys have watched me deteriorate, and you keep taking my blood and telling me, congratulations, you're in perfect health. You're a little anemic today, but otherwise you're healthy. You should be happy. While I can't fucking drive down the street to go to the store without having a fucking flare up the rest of the week. Like, hello,
Seriously.
they just put their blinders on, and sometimes all the time you should be standing up for yourself, and it's easier said than done, but it's worth it.
Thank you so much for coming on again and talking
Yeah,
about your experiences, cuz these are wild. These
Mhm.
are these are going to be like,
invaluable
it's going to be
too.
amazing to
Yeah.
see if you can get a full, like, the full treatment
Mhm.
and see where that takes you. My god.
I would be a fucking rock star if I could get it twice a week. I just imagine like, wow, I wouldn't have to like only work 1 day a week because I'm in too much pain, or
Mhm.
you know, I wouldn't have to chip away at my projects every morning before I'm too dizzy to keep sitting at my desk. Like I'm too hard on myself. I get a lot done anyway, but it's not enough for me. So
Yeah. The
A true
standards
artist.
we hold ourselves to.
yeah.
But thank you all for listening.
And thank you
This
to
has
our
been yeah.
patrons that got to
Yes.
play with us today. We had our first Discord hangout today, and we played some games, and it was really fun.
Yes, I died twice. It was great. I got killed by 2 different ghosts in Phasmophobia. I think
Yes.
that is actually what it's called. I
Yes.
keep wanting to call it Phantasmagoria and like
Same.
yeah. Oh, it's impossible. That's a different game. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thank you to our Patreon
Thank you.
subscribers. You are all amazing. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook at HAYHU Podcast. Go ahead, check out that Patreon. We're actually doing stuff with it. It's gonna be dope as hell coming up. Make sure you smash that like button.
No,
No,
gentle pressing.
But gentle fondling of the like button.
Okay, great, guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time, as always.
Don't tell us to just get over it.